A children's Anuad, the Anuad paraphrased. The first ones were brothers, Anu and Padme. They came into the void, and time began. As Anu and Padme wandered the void, the interplay of light and darkness created Nur. Both Anu and Padme were amazed and delighted with her appearance, but she loved Anu, and Padme retreated from them in bitterness. Nur became pregnant, but before she gave birth, Padme returned, professing his love for Nur. She told him that she loved only Anu, and Padme beat her in rage. Anu returned, fought Padme, and cast him outside time. Nur gave birth to creation, but died from her injuries soon after. Anu, grieving, hid himself in the sun and slept. Meanwhile, life sprang up on the 12 worlds of creation and flourished. After many ages, Padme was able to return to time. He saw creation and hated it. He swung his sword, shattering the 12 worlds in their alignment. Anu awoke and fought Padme again. The long and furious battle ended with Anu the victor. He cast aside the body of his brother, who he believed was dead, and attempted to save creation by forming the remnants of the 12 worlds into one, Nirn, the world of Tamriel. As he was doing so, Padme struck him through the chest with one last blow. Anu grappled with his brother and pulled them both outside of time forever. The blood of Padme became the Daedra. The blood of Anu became the stars. The mingled blood of both became the Aedra, hence their capacity for good and evil, and their greater affinity for earthly affairs than the Daedra, who have no connection to creation. On the world of Nirn, all was chaos. The only survivors of the 12 worlds of creation were the Elnafey and the Hist. The Elnafey are the ancestors of Mer and Men. The Hist are the trees of Argonia. Nirn originally was all land with interspersed seas, but no oceans. A large fragment of the Elnafey world landed on Nirn relatively intact, and the Elnafey living there were the ancestors of the Mer. These Elnafey fortified their borders from the chaos outside, hid their pocket of calm, and attempted to live on as before. Other Elnafey arrived on Nirn, scattered amid the confused jumble of the shattered worlds, wandering and finding each other over the years. Eventually, the wandering Elnafey found the hidden land of old Elnafey, and were amazed and joyful to find their kin living amid the splendor of ages past. The wandering Elnafey expected to be welcomed into the peaceful realm, but the old Elnafey looked on them as degenerates, fallen from their former glory. For whatever reason, war broke out and raged across the whole of Nirn. The old Elnafey retained their ancient power and knowledge, but the wanderers were more numerous and toughened by their long struggle to survive on Nirn. This war reshaped the face of Nirn, sinking much of the land beneath the new oceans and leaving the lands as we know them: Tamriel, Akavir, Atmora, and Yakuta. The old Elnafey realm, although ruined, became Tamriel. The remnants of the wanderers were left divided on the other 3 continents. Over many years, the Elnafey of Tamriel became the Mer, the elves, the Dwemer, the deep ones, sometimes called dwarves, the Chimer, the changed ones who later became the Dunmer, the dark or cursed ones, the dark elves, the Bosmer, the green or forest ones, the wood elves, and the Altmer, the elder or high ones, the high elves. On the other continents, the wandering Elnafey became the men, the Nords of Atmora, the Red Guards of Yakuta, and the Seishi of Akavir. The Hists were bystanders in the Elnafey War, but most of their realm was destroyed as the war passed over it. A small corner of it survived to become Blackmarsh and Tamriel, but most of their realm was sunk beneath the sea. Eventually, men returned to Tamriel. The Nords were the first, colonizing the northern coast of Tamriel before recorded history, led by the legendary Ysgramor. The 13th of his line, King Harold, was the first to appear in written history, and so the Merithic era ended. A children's Anuad is, well, a children's book. It's an abbreviated version of the creation of Nirn, and because it's presented in this way, it skips over a lot of things that happen, it combines events, it has some outright lies in it. We'll just do a brief overview of some of the things I think are interesting in the book. It starts off by describing Anu and Padme as brothers. This isn't accurate because Anu and Padme are basically just primordial forces at this point. They are opposite from one another but equal in power, but I don't think you could call them brothers. If my memory serves correct, this is the only book that talks about Nur. Nur isn't actually a being, and most certainly did not give birth to creation. The love triangle is just a fabrication for the sake of creating a narrative that children can easily remember. In fact, none of the beings mentioned, real or otherwise, had anything to do with the creation of Nirn. But it is more simple to describe it that way instead of getting into Anu and Padme both creating their own souls/offspring, which would be Anuel and Sithis respectively. In turn, they do the same, creating Ariel and Lorcan, Ariel being Akatosh, and it only gets deeper from there. So we'll talk about it when we read a book that describes those events. Just know that this book, not entirely accurate. It says that the blood of Padme became the Daedra. In a very poetic kind of way, this isn't completely inaccurate. In reality, the Daedra are simply the gods that did not participate in the creation of Nirn and now reside in the plains of Oblivion. The blood of Anu becoming the stars, also not correct, but we'll cover the full creation story as we read through many more books in the future. The story of Old Elnifey and the Wandering Elnifey is good, and the war that ensued between them did change the face of Nirn in several creation accounts. It gives a very modern description of the races of men and Mer, using names and descriptions that wouldn't be accurate for the time of creation, but is what we would now refer to them as. It does describe it as happening over many years, but just be aware that those many years are millennia in some circumstances. The last thing to mention are the Tseshi of Akavir. It calls them one of the races of men. I don't know that this is 100% accurate. They would seem to be closer to beast folk rather than men. Some of the other beast folk races would be the Khajiit of Elsewhere and the Argonians of Blackmarsh. There are sources that support the Tseshi being men and sources that support them being beast folk. If you didn't know, the Tseshi are described as a snake-like humanoid race native to Akavir. It's generally understood that Mer never lived there, and any race of men that might have lived there were eaten by the Tseshi long ago, at least according to some records. But I'm sure we'll get there. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening. Drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me what you think about this book in the comments below. And may the blessings of the 8 Divines be upon you.